Thanks again for hosting me over here. My name is Matej Michalko, and I'm the founder and CEO of Decent, which is a blockchain digital content distribution network. And what we are focusing at is, getting unnecessary middlemen out of the equation in whatever concerns content distribution. So we are building a peer-to-peer platform that liberates all the authors and content consumers from unnecessary middleman fees and manipulation. So, first of all, there is a red guy in the middle. I'm not saying he or she is a bad guy, but as you might understand, this represents a middleman. Just let me tell you a story from last year. I booked a hotel in Prague through Booking.com in Czech Republic. It was something in July or August. I needed a hotel for 2 nights, so I booked a room. It was something like a 4-star hotel, so it was pretty good, and I didn't look, that much, what kind of room is there and so on. I just booked it and came to the hotel. So I show up at the reception. I got a card. I got a key. I came to the room and opened the door, and I realized the room has no windows. Right. So I came back to the reception, and I kind of complained that this is not something I ordered, and that the room would need to be changed. So because this is not something one would expect in a 4-star hotel in Prague, right? It's a totally different story in Shanghai, for example, where a 5-star Radisson SAS hotel in the city center offers rooms without windows, but one is not expecting certainly this in a 4-star hotel in Prague. So the answer I got at the reception was that they are not going to change the room, and they are going to charge me nevertheless. So basically, take it or leave it. So what I have done is that I left the hotel and I booked a different one. So then afterwards, I left them one review on Booking.com on their hotel page, and I described my experience. I put 3 or 4 sentences. What happened. The receptionist was rude. They didn't return my money, and so on, and I had the room without windows, so I gave them 1 out of 10. So then I checked the page, so my comments, my review got published over there. And afterwards, I booked a different hotel, of course, and I forgot about this experience. But something like 1 month afterwards, I needed to go to Prague again, and I also went to Booking.com, and they offered me the same hotel. So I basically, I came into it. Of course, I didn't book the room, but I, went through the comments, and believe me or not, my review was not there. So Booking basically removed my genuine review of the hotel. So then I dug kind of more deeply into the actual case, and I realized that it is legal. The remove review is legal at the hotel's request. A hotel can request removal of basically any review they don't like on Booking.com. So this is something that is in their terms and conditions, right? But on the other hand, from the consumer point of view, I have seen the hotel had still 8.6 out of 10 rating or 8.4. And if there was this kind of review with 1 out of 10 and they have room without windows or something, that probably I wouldn't have bought this, right? So yeah, this is where this guy in the middle comes into it, right? I'm not saying middlemen are bad or are manipulating something, but in many cases there can be a lot of value, a lot of added value without them, that can be seen in reduced transaction costs and more transparency. So for example, you take Amazon, right? You are an ebook author, you want to publish your ebook. You worked on it for a couple of months, and you want to publish it to monetize your time, your work, and so on. So you go on Amazon, you publish it through Amazon. There are terms and conditions. There is a process you need to comply with, and so on and so on. And once you get sales, imagine you are very successful. So the first the first week you get 10,000 pounds, right? It's your revenue. But actually you do not get 10,000 pounds. You get only about 5,000 pounds. Because the fees of Amazon are about 40 to 60% for ebooks. It could be even more for printed books, right? I'm not saying there is no added value of Amazon. They certainly have a huge, network of content consumers, of readers. They have, Amazon Kindles and so on. But, this fee is exorbitant, at least in my opinion, 40 to 60%. So this is, where what we are doing can come into the equation and will come into the equation eventually to make those processes more efficient. But I will talk more in detail how we are going to achieve this later in my presentation. So, as most of you know about blockchain, I wouldn't go too much into this. We also started later. So, all those words, security, immutability, trust, protection of authors' rights, decentralization, cost effectivity, transparency, encryption, peer-to-peer, Byzantine fault tolerance, smart contracts, automation, efficiency, and many more can be explained by one word, blockchain. So if you check blockchain on Wikipedia, we found a lot of stuff like this, and that can be even more added into this. So blockchain, is something like quantum physics, used to be a lot of time. So some time ago, AI, and so on. It's a a concept, a technology. There is a lot, but still, it's hard to see. It's still hard to commercialize. It's still hard to see blockchain in mainstream markets nowadays. So, if you look at those two pictures, so this is the standard client-server architecture. There is one server in the middle. It can be even a cloud, for example, Amazon or Google or anything, controlled by a central entity. So it could be also a single point of failure up to some extent. And there are a lot of clients afterwards connecting into it, right? So this blockchain doing, in the, on the decentralization point of view, is that they are, building a network of, more or less, equal players where the trust is decentralized. Imagine this guy is Amazon, so there is a brand, there is something, people trust, but it is replaced, and it is replaced afterwards by more guys that have this trust decentralized according to the laws of mathematics and cryptography. So what we are talking about is distributed trust. So this is just a very short overview of what blockchain can do. Very small subset actually of what blockchain technology can do. So from smart contracts, used in digital rights, wagers, escrow, digital currency, record keeping, securities, and so on. There are a lot of applications, nowadays, and we are focusing on a couple of them at Decent. Now, what I would like to talk about are decentralized applications, or Dapps. So, how many of you heard about the DAO and the famous 50 million hack, if we call it, and bifurcation of Ethereum community into Ethereum and Ethereum Classic. So DAO was a DApp. Bitcoin is a DApp. So what is a DApp? DApp is, as DAO, a decentralized autonomous organization. It's an application that is running without a single point of failure, without a central point of failure. So something like Bitcoin, right? If you have Bitcoin, you send money from place A to place B, from the UK to the US, and either you do it through SWIFT, right, through bank wire, so it takes, 3 days and it costs you £20, or you use, Bitcoin, which is a DApp, and it takes 10 minutes, right, to get transferred. So it's like, sending emails or having phone calls or sending letters, right? So there's this kind of difference, basically. Of course, you cannot pay for everything with Bitcoin, but there are a lot of places that accept it, and there are a lot of ways to exchange them, to local currency. So, for example, from GBP to USD, US dollar, right? So, One of the key characteristics of Dapps is that they are open source, right? So we can see everything what is written. No one can cheat you. You can compile it on your machine. Then they are peer-to-peer. So as you know, BitTorrent, for example, is peer-to-peer, but BitTorrent is not really a Dapp. Rather, Bitcoin, Ethereum, Augur, Decent, and so on. They are immutable. So the history is kept in blockchain. So whatever happened is it's registered there and cannot be changed afterwards. This is the key characteristic actually of blockchain. They are massively scalable in the right case if they are done properly. This is what we are actually trying to achieve with our chief architect Josef, who is sitting over there. I will introduce him a little bit later. They are cryptography intensive. When I talk to cryptographers, some of them are from UCL, they told me, okay, but Bitcoin and this is not the most advanced cryptography one can really use, right? For example, at academic level and so on. But this is really put into practice. Bitcoin is cryptography in practice. So there is some, advanced cryptography that is really put into practice, and this is exactly what we are doing at Decent. We are using various cryptographic concepts that are put into practice and into work. So there is a lot of engineering work behind us. Is this a question? Yes.
What kind of advanced cryptography are you guys using? Using ZK snarks?
I will get into this. I will get into this soon, and Josef will connect this. Yeah. So, good question. So. Okay, but what I want to say in general about those Dapps, Bitcoin, is their key characteristic is that they have tokens, right? As Bitcoin protocol have Bitcoins, BTC, right? Without Bitcoins, you do not have the access to the protocol, right? So, Bitcoin protocol without Bitcoins is not very useful, right? So, this is the same for Ethereum. No ETH, no use for Ethereum, right? So you cannot pay for smart contract execution and so on. The same for Augur, for Decent. Without DCT, you cannot really pay, you cannot really use, you cannot really sell content, using the network. So tokens the system. Now there is something called the Metcalfe's law, which comes from a telecommunications industry, and this law is saying that a value of a telecommunications network is proportional to the square of the number of connected users of the system. So it's that the V as a value equals a constant times n squared, right? So this is an example of a phone network, right? The landline, which has only 2 users, right? So this guy can only call this guy, and this guy can only call this guy, right? So there is only one connection, right? So if you have 5 phones in the network, there are much more connections, probably 9 or something. I never counted them. And if you have 12 or 20 phones, this is a real network. There are a lot of connections that can be done. And the question is why I'm talking about Metcalfe's law in the relationship of Bitcoin. So I will get to this later, one of my next slides. But this law is not only used in telecommunications industry, but it's used in many other places. For example, WhatsApp was sold to Facebook in 2014 for $19 billion US, and this was one of the reasons it was sold. The company had literally zero cash flow, only from the investment, and they built a network of users. Using WhatsApp, there are a lot of users, and you can call in over a lot of users, and this can be afterwards used for monetization, advertising, and so on, whatever Facebook is doing with it, right? So Facebook owns all the data, so it's very lucrative from this point of view. Yeah? Now, if you look at Metcalfe's value again, it's basically the same as network effects, right? There are people talking about network effects, but network effects is not really different from a constant times n squared number of users, right? So there are 2 public companies called Tencent and Facebook, so I will not introduce Facebook because everyone knows it over there. But Tencent is one of the Chinese big 3, one of the Chinese BAT or the Chinese BAT. Chinese BAT stands for, B stands for Baidu, A stands for Alibaba, the company that got the largest ICO. Sorry, IPO. I'm talking in the terms on ICO because we have done ICO. So they've done the largest, this is the future already. So maybe. So they have done the largest. There are less fees in ICO than in IPO. Yeah? So we will get into this also. So we can discuss. But okay, they have done the largest IPO in the world, something like 1 or 2 years ago, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah, and the Tencent is the third one. They own the WeChat, for example, or Weixin in Chinese, if there are some Chinese over here. So or someone who speaks Chinese. So this is the most famous Chinese WhatsApp, that is used for basically everything in China. So like payments, ordering, and many much other stuff called. So this is a value. Those data are taken from a public domain, and there was a team of 3 Chinese researchers that published a paper in 2014 or something like this, and they took data from public domain, right? They took a value and they take the number, of users, a number of users. So the n is squared, and there is a constant times this, the market capitalization. So they found actually the application of Metcalfe's law on publicly traded companies. Yeah, so there are a lot of more examples from public domain or from any domain. You can just put the data in and see whatever it does. But there is at least a very strong positive correlation among certain independent things. So yeah, so okay, now tokens. Okay, so tokens, what is a token? So token is a Bitcoin, right? So this brown curve over here, or red, I can't see properly. So the non-green or non-black one is n squared, where n is the number of transactions per day, excluding popular addresses in Bitcoin network. In the whole Bitcoin network, this is the number of transactions, right? Taken from the blockchain, right? You have timestamp blockchain, so you can see the number of transactions. As you square it in time, and you get something like this, the brown one. Then the green one is also n squared, but where n is the number of unique addresses used per day in whole Bitcoin network. So again, data from blockchain. Download Bitcoin blockchain, you can get those two, right? And then the black one, the black curve over here, is data from bitcoinaverage.com about the market capitalization of Bitcoin, which has basically nothing to do with the data in the Bitcoin blockchain, right? Number of transactions and so on. Yeah? So Bitcoin average market capitalization is the number of Bitcoins times their actual value. Number of Bitcoins in circulation times the value. So probably right now the market capitalization is about, $1 billion, 10 million or something, but right now it's about 15 billion US dollars. One Bitcoin is about 1,000 US dollars right now, and there are about 15 million of Bitcoins in circulation right now. So we can get this number, the black one. So if you see it in time, you can pick another, time frame, and you see some strong positive correlation, right? So Metcalfe's law again applied. So now, this is hype cycle for emerging technology from Gartner. So Gartner is, who doesn't know, it's basically a very well-respected market research agency from the US, respected between the investors, from Silicon Valley, China and Europe, and basically all over the world. And what they are doing, every year they publish this hype cycle, some kind of curve, and they put a lot of technologies there. So they put AR, smart robots, effective computing, hybrid cloud computing, augmented reality, and so on. And what happened for the first time in 2015, they put cryptocurrencies in there, over here. So this is cryptocurrencies, right? And it has a dark blue spot, meaning that they have 5 to 10 years until the adoption by mainstream markets. So what does it mean, adoption by mainstream markets? Basically, the test is that if you walk in the street and you ask about blockchain, random people, and if they say they know it, then they are in mainstream markets, basically. They know it, and at the same time, they use it. So for example, you ask about iPhone, right? So everyone knows what is iPhone, and probably a lot of people are using it. But about blockchain or Bitcoin, this is not the case. So there is still, according to Gartner, a lot of time, to get somewhere. And this is the same cycle, the same curve from 2016. There is no more cryptocurrency, not attractive enough for Gartner, apparently. But there is blockchain. Blockchain appeared there in July 2016, so last year. And blockchain is, again, dark blue. Dark blue means 5 to 10 years until the adoption of mainstream market. So 5 to 10 years until you will have blockchain in your iPhone, everyone would have. Yeah, and this is myself in Switzerland in December last year. And basically, this is the logo of the Swiss Federal Railway Company, so SBBC, FFS in various languages. So this is German, French, Italian, if I'm not mistaken. And this is, their ticket machine. So every train station in Switzerland has this kind of machine. And since December, people can buy Bitcoin in there. So you put cash in, or you pay by credit card, and you can get Bitcoin to your wallet that you have in your mobile phone. So this is just an example how a technology is getting through this kind of player, into the mainstream market, right? I don't know how many people are using it, but I've been in Zurich in the one event, Swissre, with Christian and Daniel as well, and we
testify. I saw it.
Yes, yes. So we bought Bitcoins in this kind of machine. So this is just an example how it is getting to the mainstream market. So right now, let me tell a little bit about what we are doing at Decent. So we have 4 offices and three kind of bigger ones. One of them is in Shanghai, and we got supported by JadeValue incubator, fintech incubator, which is basically their main investor is Cashbus, which is one of the largest players in the peer-to-peer lending markets in China. So it's very emerging, and there is a lot of traction over here. So there are a lot of blockchain startup and fintech startups. So we are sitting there. So in case you're around in Shanghai, you can tell us hello. We can host you over there. Now we also established a blockchain R&D hub in Armenia in October last year. So Armenia is a country that has a lot of talent in IT and engineering, and we kind of enlarged our core team by the developers from there. So blockchain R&D hub, which is also over there, is the motto is transforming the internet. We are focusing on vertical integration of decent technology into various domains. We've got one successful spin-off funded in Germany recently. So now let's get into Decent. So what we are doing. So Decent is a blockchain content distribution platform, right? And the use case is that an author can sell content with 0% fees, basically, to many content consumers. Instant settlement, no fees. So imagine what would happen without blockchain or without Decent, right? So this is the status right now. So this number over here is the US minimum wage, monthly wage, which is $1,160. So it's something like 800 pounds, I believe, 800 pounds sterling. Yeah. So this is the minimum monthly wage. So a poor author who makes, music, musician or something, and he wants to sell it using self-pressed CD, he or she needs to sell 143 CDs per month in order to get the minimum wage. Right, the minimum wage, which is, I don't know who gets minimum wage, usually unqualified people, right? But musician is someone talented, so 133, right? Then there are, retail CD, it's 1,161, iTunes, 1,229 downloads, and then we get down to Spotify, to Amazon and so on, Spotify. So Spotify is about streaming, so there needs to be 4 million plays per month in order that the musician gets minimum wage, US minimum wage. So, okay, it's all great, but there is, something that doesn't look right, in this. So what we are proposing is a blockchain MVD, a minimum viable data standard. So imagine all the music, all the videos, all of, other kind of digital content, software, games, have complete ownership information about usage right, global licensing rules, mechanical rights information, publishing information, lyrics, we with the relationship with the copyright owners and protection agencies. Imagine everything is put into one format, and this is in blockchain, right? So the publishers, the authors do not only sell their music with no fees, but they have a lot of data. A lot of data that can be sold and monetized and used in many ways. Now, this is actually reflected in our formats. So we are proposing a new format that we would implement in one of the next versions of Decent.dct blockchain format. So as you have .mp3 or .avi or .epub or .mobi, right, it would be .dct. So for audio, it would be .adct. For video, .vdct, and for text, it would be .tdct. So all those metadata I introduced previously would be stored in this format. So this is basically the architecture we currently have. So not really a high level view. So the idea is that as I already mentioned, the author or the content producer, so video maker, ebook author, music, it can be even a group or whatever. They have their content, text, music, video, software, and this content is uploaded to peer-to-peer network and then purchased by consumers, right, with 0% fees. Also, the reputation I managed at the very beginning. I mentioned at the very beginning my case from booking, right? That the middleman can manipulate all the data. So here it is stored in blockchain and it's not manipulable, right? So if an author is good, he or she can build, a lifetime reputation, basically because it cannot be manipulated. The ratings. So the reviews, would work in a very similar way as in Uber, right? You take Uber, you like the driver, so you put 5 stars, right? You don't like the driver, you put 3 stars, right? So everything is stored over here. Now, this is how it works. This is a little bit another different level of granularity. We will discuss this afterwards with Josef if you have any questions. So there's a distributed storage in the middle. There is a key distribution. We are using Shamir secret sharing. This is one of the concepts. For the secret distribution, and there are payments that have forms of transactions. So again, the content is encrypted at author side, gets distributed through blockchain, gets a reference in blockchain. It's actually distributed off-chain. We are currently working on IPFS, BitTorrent, and a bunch of other data distribution protocols, and gets to the consumers. So only when the content when the consumers paid for the content is decrypted. They can consume it. And the author is exactly saying, how many transactions, who bought it, when bought it, how was it, what was the rating, and so on. Now, this is Shamir secret sharing. Basically, the idea of Shamir secret sharing is to distribute a key. We are currently using an AES key, which is a symmetric key for encryption and decryption of data. And Shamir secret sharing is based on the idea that there is any level of that any number of the polynomials of degree 2 can go through 2 points, if I'm not mistaken. So there are 2 points, and one can make any number of polynomials of degree 2. And if this is applied to what we are doing, it means that basically M of n, so we have M selection of a pool of n publishers, so only those M can decrypt the shared secret, and they don't need to be the same. But we will get into the technicalities a little bit later. So let me tell you a few words about products. As I mentioned, we are on the mission to get blockchain and whatever we have into mainstream markets. And the strategy we are doing it that we are not focusing really on B2C, we are rather B2B. So we are working closely with the manufacturer of ebook readers, and they've already a user base, and they will put they will make a gateway to Decent network. So whatever is on Decent will be reflected in whatever they have over here, all those readers. So it's something like Amazon Kindle, but without the content lock-in. Then there is music, the same applies for players, and this is something we are going to build at the end of next year is Decent Stream. So the same as Netflix, but peer-to-peer and with no fees, basically. And how we are doing it here, what is our business model? We are non-profit, we are a foundation, so we are building a DAO, which I will talk a little bit more afterwards. What is it and when it will be. We are very close actually to releasing our first testnet. So yes, the idea behind this streaming is that we want to manufacture, that Amazon Fly or Google Chromecast, I believe is it called, this kind of USB sticks you can just stick into any kind of smart TV, into HDMI. You can plug it into HDMI port and watch the content, right? So this is what we plan to do afterwards. But back to our non-profit nature, we are a foundation. We have no shares, no profit. We are building this DAO. We have our own tokens, DCT, and we got financed by an ICO, which is initial coin offering that I mistakenly, mentioned instead of IPO. And we raised more than 5,000 bitcoins at the end of last year during 2 months. So it was an equivalent of about $4.2 million US, and we are investing this entire amount into the development and sustainable, operations of the foundation. So this is our testnet called Caesar, testnet 1. In the next slides, I will show you a link where to get invitations to it. So we've been working on this for a couple of months already. We had our POC that has been published online, our proof of concept at the beginning of 2016, just before our ICO. We are using some of the concepts from the POC, but this will be, much more scalable. We are talking about thousands of transactions per second, getting closer to tens of thousands and so on. And this is, the first version, kind of overview of the real system that would be released in June of this year. So this is how our desktop wallet looks like. So if you are a content consumer, you want to download some content and watch it or listen to it, you download our application online, you launch it, and you can see all the content over here. So there is the title of the content, the rating, there is for how long it's going to be published, there is its size, there is its price, and so on. So you have also your balance, such as in Bitcoin, your DCT. So you have 1,200,000 DCT left to buy content, and you can purchase all the stuff. So this is just a very basic overview of whatever we have already done, to show how it works. But everything is in blockchain, and more application, more gateways, more real world application. Not this kind of stuff would follow. Now this is the view, author's view. So if I want to publish a content, so I can upload it. Yeah. So I put a title, put some synopsis, the information about the content, maybe a free part if it's an ebook. A part can be free. Then of course I put the date. For how long it can be published. So for example, till 28th of November 2018. So this is the duration of the smart contract. This means that if I want to upload some content, I need to pay something for it. It's not totally free of charge. And this is basically a spam protection in our network. Yeah? Then I choose the number of seeders. So this is some redundancy of resilience, how resilient the content I want to have in the network. And I put the price. I'm an author, I'm putting the price tag. And then I can upload it, and then it goes. Then the price for publishing the content, it's calculating according to the time, to the duration, number of seeders, and size, which is calculated automatically. And this is another view of a file. So your file is complete. So this is the rating. So 3 out of 5 stars. There is the author, expiration, created, price, average rating, its size, and time spot. So you can see how many times, but this is, the transparent reputation. Yeah? As I already mentioned, this cannot be changed as there is another auditable way, on the blockchain. And if you scan this QR code, you can get directly to decent.ch/en/testnet. If you want to be our beta testers, you've got, I believe, more than 2,000 signups right now inside. So the launch of Decent Caesars, the testnet, is on the 10th of March 2017 at 1 p.m. GMT. So 1 p.m. in the UK, it's like in 2 weeks on Friday, if I'm not mistaken. Decent will be launched, available to public. People can download it, see whatever there is there and test it. And this would be a great help for us to build a great product that would be available for launch in June. Also, we are hiring. We have a team, internal team of 20 full-time people right now working on this, and you can find more information about it online. Some of them are available over here. So we are hiring. We are looking for blockchain, C++, and Go developers. We are looking for senior product manager and for technical writers. So the email is jobs@decent.ch, or you can talk to me or one to my colleagues, basically anyone out of them. We are strongly thinking about establishing an office here in London, based, the pool of talent available over here. So, we are looking for people. So I would like to thank all of you for your attention. Thank you very much.